I would like to welcome AK Singh sir, who's the president of the GCS MAI, uh, Colonel KKK Singh, who's the vice president, Vijit Nanjog, the secretary, and Vinod Goyalji, the treasurer of the GCS MAI. So the GCS MAI is an organization which works extensively on golf course maintenance, building. So if AK sir, if you could just start off by just introducing the uh, organization to all the members who are not familiar with us. Uh, Vijit, I think AK sir.
Is not on the screen.
We've got him.
Now,
Yeah, we are there. So if you can talk a little bit about the GCS and MAI.
Okay, gentlemen, we have three eminent people here. We have Colonel KKK Singh, who is a very, very experienced greenkeeper. He had been in JP Greens, Army Golf Club, Delhi Golf Club, and is currently the co-chairman of Delhi Golf Club's Greens Committee. So he's probably at the premier end of greenkeeping. Mr. Vijit Nandrajog is the secretary of GCSMAI. He's also a designer, does a lot of work on golf construction. So he's very, very well versed with the greenkeeping procedures, machinery, shaping, drainage, grasses, etc. Mr. Vinod Goyal is a chemist. When I say a chemist, he doesn't sell medicines. He sells medicines for the golf courses. And he's a master of chemistry, so he understands the technology behind fertilizers, fungicides, and everything else, and he understands the uptake of these chemicals. So he can probably tell you how to go about doing this chemical management. As far as COVID is concerned, why we are choosing this particular topic of COVID management in the golf course management in the post-COVID world is primarily because COVID is perhaps the biggest pandemic we have seen for at least 100 years. And it has disrupted many things, including golf. I think one of the things which golf courses will have to look at is much better, tighter financial controls. So that's where the expertise of Vijit or Colonel KK Singh or Mr. Vinod Goyal will come into play. You also need to reinvent the golf. You need to go back to the roots, and perhaps the so-called FNB, which had taken a primary position in golf courses, may have to take a back seat. And the greenkeeping or the golf course management will be much more important than what it was. So I open it to Indrajit Bolotia for taking it forward. As far as our association is concerned, about 20 years old, we have more than 150 people who have expertise on this field, and we can perhaps provide certain amount of solutions if someone needs low-cost solutions, easy solutions. They are free of cost as far as we are concerned.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, before we go into anything, I want to put a question which I think mainly Kolkata and Mumbai face is the monsoons, and the monsoons are extremely heavy, and it's a unique situation in some parts of the country where you don't see the sun for 5-6 days, and it's raining cats and dogs morning, evening. What are the practices that need to be maintained, or what are the things that you need to look at as a greenkeeper or as a committee? So, AK sir, you can pass this question to whoever you would want to.
Colonel KK Singh may like to take it. He's our vice president, and he's got much bigger background on greenkeeping than any one of us. So he can perhaps take this.
Right, Arun, I'll take on this question. See, this due to COVID, most of the golf courses have been closed from 6 to 8 months or even more, and some have not opened even now. Though in between, some courses have managed to do some sort of a maintenance, but due to reduced manpower and technicians not being available, it has not been up to the standard. So the major problem which when the golf course opens, we are all going to face is the excessive growth of grass on the golf course, especially fairways, tees and greens, because there have been no mowing of the grass. So the root length is quite high, but there's too much of thatch which is accumulated, especially in the fairways and greens. So our major task should be immediately to remove the thatch from the golf course. It is a major task. We can start from the greens only. We can do verticutting, and the height of the cut should be reduced gradually, not more than starting say from 5 mm, 5.5 or even 6 mm, 5.5 mm, and then gradually come down as long as the scalping doesn't take place. The moment scalping takes place, stop it there. And after that, the direction of mowing, we all keep changing in every golf course, 4 days in a week, 5 days in a week. But that is not sufficient. So along with the mowing, we may have to resort to grooming, use a groomer on the green. And again, at a higher level, then bringing it down gradually. So the grass is not, the surface is not disturbed. Then most of the golf courses, we all use very good high quality of green mowers, which picks up the cut grass from the green. Only very few percent, say 5% or 10% grass is left on the green. But in actual practice, the fairways I have found, most of the golf courses are leaving the clipping in the fairway only, which is not a good practice. We have to use the buckets in that. And only thing that there will be extra effort required, extra time taken the moment he's gone past one length of the fairway, the bucket is full with the clipping. He has to come down or have an additional man to remove the clipping from the basket and put it on again. So this practice must stop. We must remove the clipping from the fairways as we are already doing for the greens. And we have to take special precautions to remove the thatch, especially from the green. Certain amount of thatch is required, but not more than what is required. Otherwise, we have more thatch, we'll have more problem with the greens, there will be diseases, there will be insects coming, the ball speed will be slower, and other things which come along with the thatch. After the thatching has been done, we shall have to do very light top dressing to smoothen the surface for the ball to roll. A very light top dressing is required. Maybe every week, if not week, every fortnight, we must do light top dressing. But we should not allow mat to accumulate. What happens when the green is mowed? The dead material from the machine falls onto the putting surface only. It is not picked up. It is the stolons, it is the leaves, it is the other material which is lying. So either it has to be manually sucked up with a machine or brushed aside. It is a time-consuming process, but the dead material should not be allowed to accumulate on the green. After this is the next most important factor is the water bank. We have not been able to water the greens properly. Now the summer is already in, the temperature have gone up. We must, besides normal watering, all the golf courses work out the ET, that is evapotranspiration, working the exact amount of how many minutes of water is required in the green. Over and above, we must hand water the greens minimum twice a week. And this hand watering should be deep enough so that the water penetrates right up to the root zone of the green. Then, due to extreme heat, especially around 2 o'clock, if we can do syringing, that is 1 round of water on the green, so that the leaves don't wilt because of the excessive heat. Also, due to monsoon coming in, we find that too much of humidity coming. And if humidity continues for long, it is again bad for the green. So what greenkeeper can do is, there are some particular holes in every course where there is no direction of flow of wind. It is masked either by trees or by building. So wherever the water, where the flow of the air is being restricted, we can use wind circulators. Though it has not been used in our country till now, but Delhi Golf Club has recently, we're trying to acquire wind circulator on couple of greens where there's excess of moisture on the green. The moisture should not be allowed to retain on the surface. Since most of the golf courses we have Bermuda grass is more prone to thatch and diseases than bent grass. So we have to take extra care that we do not allow thatch to build up. We may have to do verticutting maybe once or twice a week. As long as these practices are followed, we'll find that within a week to 10 days, the putting surface will be back where we had left it before the onset of this pandemic. So these are the few things which one should keep it in mind. In case anybody still have any doubts, we'll allow later on question and answer. You can pose a question and try to answer that.
So if anyone has a question, you can just put your hand up and we will unmute you so you can ask your question. So if anyone has anything to ask, just coming to Vijit, I want to direct this question a little bit. You worked in Calcutta also. I know you worked in Tolly. So Calcutta and Mumbai have that similar problem of severe rains and long days of no sun and a lot of water. What are the practices a city which has this kind of weather conditions should look at?
Yeah, we can
to unmute.
Make sure that we don't water too much on the green. The greens normally go bad because we apply excess of water on the greens. It has to be controlled. And
Right,
if again,
yes, sir. Vijit, I think you can continue.
Yeah. So I was saying there'll be two aspects here that we need to look at. Number one, from a sort of a design and golf course infrastructure perspective, for golf clubs in Calcutta, Bombay, these regions where it rains heavily, it's very important to have a sort of a efficient water management system, the golf course. Very often we've seen many golf courses where you have the opportunity of collecting this water and reusing it, which is not done. A lot of times water exits the golf course. It is allowed to exit the golf course. So that's probably one aspect that can be looked at in terms of design, in terms of investing in a good water management system, where the idea should be whatever comes into the golf course is reused back onto the course, and whatever water you exit or you drive off the golf course should be a better quality water than what you receive. That's probably the overall efficient water management system. As far as the maintenance practices and all are concerned, obviously we need to be extremely flexible in such reasons. You can't really have a set schedule for golf course maintenance in these areas where it rains heavy. The superintendent needs to be extremely flexible in terms of the mowing heights, the mowing frequencies, etc., etc. But very importantly, what I've seen with my limited experience in working in such regions is preventive action before the monsoons and post monsoons extremely important, especially on the greens. Fungal diseases are very common during the monsoons, very heavy monsoons. So preventive action much before the monsoons arrive, and also after the monsoons have receded. It's very important to have some kind of preventive, disease control schedule for the golf course.
Indrajit, can I add something onto this?
Of course, sir.
I think there's another aspect which the management of a golf club needs to see, which is not entirely greenkeeping, but it's management of the golf course as a whole. The idea of having a golf course which is running like a championship course for 365 days in a year is flawed. You got to understand what Vijit also alluded to. If you got a lot of humidity, you've got a lot of rains, you got to understand that the survival of the golf course is more important than what few players in that golf club want the condition to be. You got to shorten the golf courses in these monsoons. You got to play lesser. You got to have higher mowing grasses. And you got to understand that every time for 365 days in a year, it's not going to play exactly the same as it's going to play in the perfect weather. So the golf club management has to understand that, and they must sensitize their membership towards that. They don't sensitize.
Right, sir. So, AK sir, this question is for you particularly because you've been on both sides. You've looked after golf courses. You've handled the Golden Greens for many years from the as the management side. So you've done it all. This is a very tricky question, but there is always a communication issue or between the greenkeepers or the people who are maintaining the course and the committees. So how should that relationship be?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, and I think that both sides need to address that. People who are on the greenkeeping side, they tend to think that golf course runs only because of them. And people who are on the golf course management, or golf club management side, they think that the club is run only because of their expertise. There has to be a respect for each other's profession, but more importantly, there has to be a communication. I think the first thing which golf clubs need to do is get the departments together. As a management perspective, if you keep your greenkeeping department 1 kilometer away from the general hub, you're never going to have two departments working together, come what may. You can keep lecturing to each other, anything like that. In fact, just to quote a management study from Gore-Tex, the moment they went beyond a number of 50, they decided to change their structure into two teams. And they realized that if they just change the parking lot of people, they started behaving like different teams. So you got to understand that you got to be sort of co-located. You got to be interacting with each other, not only on professional basis, but on a general basis. You should use the same parking lot, for example. So the communication has to improve, and greenkeepers also should not think that they are scientists. There's a mistaken concept which greenkeepers have, that they're agronomists. Agronomy and greenkeeping are related, but they are not the same thing. Greenkeeping is an art of managing a golf course. It is not only agronomy. Agronomy is only a part of it. And similarly, a golf club captain or anyone who's on the management is not someone who's all. The most successful management is someone who hires the best people and gives them authority, delegates authority. So I think that communication is very, very important. And I'll go one step further. Communication about greenkeeping and club management to the membership at large is also equally important. Otherwise, membership comes without any communication, without any appreciation of everything, and then tendency for golf club management to get swayed by members' suggestions or complaints is much higher.
Right, sir. So my next question is to Mr. Vinod Goyal ji. Sir, there is a lot of talk about fertilizers. Some golf courses are only natural. Some golf courses talk about pesticides and fertilizers. Then there are environmentalists who talk about, how the ecosystem is getting spoiled by golf courses. So, they are actually saying that the golf courses are not good. And the question of fertilizers always come in. So if you can talk a little bit about what this fertilizer thing is all about on a golf course.
Thank you, Mr. Bhalotia ji. Fertilizer is basically nutrition. Like human nutrition, we have plant nutrition. And plant nutrition is fertilizer. First of all, we have to take care which quality, which source of fertilizer we are using. और ये जो environment का issue है, the fertilizer which are good source fertilizer, they are never harmful to the environment. There is a difference between a fertilizer and plant protection chemicals. Pesticides, weedicides, and fungicides. These are plant protection chemicals. They come at a different time, but fertilizer come at first. So we should not confuse, when we talk of environment, we should not confuse fertilizer from plant protection chemicals. जितना भी negative impact है, वो plant protection chemicals का है on environment, soil, water, or anything else. In fertilizer, basically what is the damaging the environment. Environment को वो fertilizer damage करता है जो fertilizer soil में कुछ residue छोड़ता है. Soil में residue ऐसा ही है जैसे कि हम प्लेट में जूठा छोड़ते हैं. जो चीज हमें पसंद नहीं है वो हम नहीं खाते और प्लेट में छोड़ देते हैं. वैसे ही जो टर्फ को पसंद नहीं है वो रूट्स नहीं उठाते और सॉइल में छोड़ देते हैं. तो हमें वो डालना है टर्फ में जो टर्फ को पसंद है, ताकि सॉइल में कोई भी रेजिड्यू मैटर ना हो. उसको टेक्निकली बात करें तो उसको कहा जाता है लो साल्ट इंडेक्स. ऐसा कोई भी फर्टिलाइजर जिसका कि लो साल्ट इंडेक्स होगा वो कभी भी एनवायरनमेंट को या सॉइल जो अपना नीचे का वाटर है, ग्राउंड वाटर है, उसको कभी खराब नहीं करे. लो साल्ट इंडेक्स वही है जैसे कि हम घर में आरओ को चेक करते हैं कि कोई भी ऐसा सॉल्ट जो कि प्लांट ना ले सके, कार्बोनेट्स, क्लोराइड्स, सोडियम या एनीथिंग ऑफ दिस टाइप जो कि इनसॉल्युबल फॉर्म में हो और उसको या सॉइल में जाके फिक्स हो जाता हो और प्लांट्स उसको ना ले सके, वो सॉइल में टिकता है. जितना भी फर्टिलाइजर हम लोग यूज करते हैं बेसिकली इट्स ए साल्ट. ऑल इज ए साल्ट. कॉमन साल्ट इज सोडियम क्लोराइड जो हम खाने में यूज करते हैं, बाकी सब साल्ट है. अब ये जो ट्रेडिशनली हमारे गोल्फ कोर्स में, इवन टॉली में भी यूज होता है, या नॉट टू नेम एनी गोल्फ कोर्स, एवरीवेयर इन इंडिया जो यूज करते हैं, सबसे कॉमन फर्टिलाइजर यूज होते हैं डीएपी, एमओपी एंड यूरिया. और ये तीनों ही फर्टिलाइजर हैं जो कि टर्फ के लिए डिजाइंड ही नहीं. और हम अपने वेबिनार में, चाहे हम फिजिकल वेबिनार करें या ये वेबिनार, हम सेमिनार करें या ये वेबिनार करें, हम लोग बार बार ये बोलते हैं कि हमें इन फर्टिलाइजर से अपने गोल्फ कोर्सेज को दूर करना है. केवल सस्ता होने की वजह से, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर गवर्नमेंट सब्सिडी है, हम इन प्रोडक्ट को यूज करते हैं. यदि हम नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर की तरफ जाना चाहते हैं जो कि 100% सेफ माने जाते हैं, बहुत अच्छा है, कोई शक नहीं. जैसे अभी विंग कमांडर साहब ने बोला कि कोई भी गोल्फ सुपरिटेंडेंट जो है वो एग्रोनॉमिस्ट होना जरूरी नहीं है, लेकिन यदि नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर के ऊपर गोल्फ कोर्स को चलाना है तो नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर की केमिस्ट्री को समझना बहुत जरूरी है. तो प्रोडक्ट की नॉलेज रखनी साइड बाय साइड बहुत जरूरी है और उसकी शेड्यूलिंग भी कायदे से करनी बहुत जरूरी है. नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर यदि हम गोल्फ कोर्स में अब भी बहुत यूज करते हैं, सबसे कॉमन नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर होता है जो मिनरल ओरिजिन के होते हैं. मिनरल ओरिजिन का जिप्सम गोल्फ कोर्सेज में बहुत इस्तेमाल होता है सॉइल रिकंडीशनिंग करने के लिए. लेकिन वो जिप्सम की सही क्वालिटी मिले जिसका कि कैल्शियम और सल्फेट जो जिप्सम का इंग्रेडिएंट होता है मेन, वो फुल्ली अवेलेबल हो सॉइल की रिकंडीशनिंग करने के लिए, और वो नेचुरल ओरिजिन, मिनरल ओरिजिन के होने चाहिए। इंडिया में नेचुरल ओरिजिन में भी जैसे जिप्सम भी केमिकल ओरिजिन का आता है। तो ये नॉलेज गोल्ड सुप्रिटेंडेंट को होना बहुत जरूरी है कि हमें जिप्सम एज ए नेचुरल ओरिजिन यूज करना है, तो मिनरल ओरिजिन का होना चाहिए। दूसरा बहुत कॉमन हमारे प्रोडक्ट है पोटाश। पोटाश की बहुत जरूरत है गोल्फ कोर्स के मेंटेनेंस में, टफ मेंटेनेंस में। तो पोटाश भी नेचुरल ओरिजिन का आता है, क्योंकि पोटाश में इंडिया में माइंस नहीं है, सोर्सिंग नहीं है। तो इंपोर्टेड पोटाश भी दो तरह का आता है, केमिकल ओरिजिन और एक नेचुरल ओरिजिन। और नेचुरल ओरिजिन में भी पोटाश आता है ग्रेनुलर टफ ग्रेड का, जिसको ऑर्गेनिक पोटाश हम लोग कह सकते हैं। यदि हम वो इस्तेमाल करें, वी विल बी रनिंग अवर गोल्फ कोर्स ऑन द नेचुरल ओरिजिन। नेचुरल ओरिजिन की नेक्स्ट कैटेगरी होती है बायो कंपोस्ट। वेजिटेबल ओरिजिन का जैसे शुगर केन प्रेसमेंट से या काउ डंग मैन्योर से या किसी से भी हम वर्मी कंपोस्ट करें या कंपोस्टेड मटेरियल लें, किसी भी टाइप का वेजिटेटिव ओरिजिन का प्रोडक्ट हो या फिर एनिमल ओरिजिन या इवन बर्ड के ड्रॉपिंग्स हो, इन सबको यदि प्रॉपर प्रोसेस करके गोल्फ कोर्स में यूज किया जाए, दे आर वेरी रिच। लेकिन इनकी प्रॉपर इनको हाइजीनिक करना, इनकी प्रॉपर शेप देना, इनको प्रॉपर फॉर्म में लाना कि ये टर्फ के लिए, अपने गोल्फ के लिए, ग्रीन के लिए, टी के लिए, फेयरवे के लिए, उसी हिसाब से ये सूटेबल होने चाहिए। बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट नेचुरल है। नेचुरल का थर्ड टाइप आता है प्रोबायोटिक। प्रोबायोटिक मीन्स बैक्टीरिया। ये सभी नेचुरल होते हैं, हार्मफुल भी नहीं होते, कोई डैमेज नहीं करते सॉइल को, वाटर को। जैसे पोटाश सोल्यूबलाइजिंग बैक्टीरिया, फॉस्फेटिक सोल्यूबलाइजिंग बैक्टीरिया, अजेटोबैक्टर, बैसिलस, बहुत सारे ऐसे प्रोबायोटिक हैं जिनको हम इस्तेमाल करें। और टाइम टू टाइम इनके तो अब इंडिया में, ये सब इंडिया में बनते हैं, इंपोर्ट करने की जरूरत नहीं है, बहुत सस्ते अवेलेबल हैं। और इनके तो अब कॉम्बिनेशंस भी आ गए हैं। एक लाइफोलाइजिंग टेक्नोलॉजी होती है जिससे हम कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ प्रोबायोटिक एक साथ यूज कर सकते हैं, और गोल्फ कोर्स के लिए बहुत अच्छे हैं यदि गोल्फ कोर्स में इन चीजों को यूज किया जाए तो। नेक्स्ट आता है ग्रेनुलेशन। किसी भी नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर को यदि हम यूज करते हैं तो उसको प्रॉपर पाउडर फॉर्म या प्रॉपर ग्रेनुलर फॉर्म में लाना बहुत जरूरी है, और वो फैसिलिटी अभी इंडिया में कम है थोड़ी सी, तो हमें इंपोर्टेड के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट होना पड़ता है। तो भालुटिया जी बिल्कुल ठीक है, यदि कोई गोल्फ कोर्स प्रॉपरली नेचुरल फर्टिलाइजर पे जाना चाहता है और 100% सेफ खेलना चाहता है तो कर सकता है, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है उसमें।
Right, sir. Thank you. So I think there are a couple of questions. Hands are up. Sia, can you just unmute? There's a question from somebody, Galaxy Tab.
I don't think he's connected to his audio so that I can unmute him.
Okay. Okay. So this is my next question, which I think is a very important question, which all the clubs are looking at. AK sir, you could take it, Vijit or KKK sir, whoever wants to contribute. But I think this is a very important topic, is water conservation, because most of the golf courses, especially the ones around the cities or in the cities, will not be allowed or is already not allowed to draw groundwater. It's illegal, and we will have to use the water by water harvesting or by reducing evaporation. So if we can have a little bit of knowledge on that part.
Indrajit, firstly, the golf courses must realize that it's not enough to call themselves the green lungs of the city. They have to act like one, and they have to act socially responsible and environmentally responsible. Just by having some green grass, you don't become green lungs of the city. Because if you take too much of resources, you are actually taking away the oxygen from someone else. So the concern about water is absolutely correct. There is no reason why a golf course inside a city which is parched and people are not getting enough drinking water or enough water to wash their clothes should be flooded with water. There is no two ways about it. I am quite clear that that is irresponsible for any golf course. So they will have to do water harvesting, but water harvesting in most of the cities in India has got limitations because the rainfall is not enough. What is the other solution? Other solution is to use treated water. And treated water for the grasses, while the greenkeepers will say that sky is the limit, they would like to have distilled water to irrigate the grass. but I think any kind of grey water should be enough. And what is also important at the same time is to reduce the irrigation areas, the areas which you need to irrigate all the time, that you need to reduce. And if you go back to the American Society of Golf Architects, or if you go back to the European Society of Golf Architects, they will all tell you green is not great. Generally, a grass which is slightly brownish is healthier. A very, very green grass means that the growth is on the top and the root lengths have not gone too deep down. They are more prone to disease. What we were talking about, environmental damage because of plant protection chemicals, fungicides and insecticides and weedicides, their usage will increase. So water management actually is not only socially responsible, it is not only environmentally responsible, it is also very, very necessary if you want your golf course to be healthy. Reduce the length of the golf course. Why should you be, irrigating areas near the tee just to make it look green? I think it is irresponsible. And also roughs and things like that. Try and get the most efficient irrigation system as per your budget. By most efficient, I do not mean the most expensive or the most efficient. Use certain amount of questioning. Question the irrigation companies. The irrigation companies will try to sell you the most expensive solution because they're into that business. Mr. Vinod Goyal or someone else would also like to give you the largest supply of fungicide and weedicide. But if you reduce your usage of water, you will become socially responsible, you will become environmentally responsible, and your financial health will be better. So the simplest solution is reduce the area which you need to irrigate.
If I can add to that, Indrajit, if we have a minute for that.
Yeah, sure, please.
Architecturally, what Arun sir said is spot on. In fact, globally, this is probably the biggest worry, obviously, the use of water on golf courses. Most of the restorations, renovations of golf courses that are going on globally are focusing extensively on this. All your non-playing areas, the rough areas, the areas which were earlier supposed to be, or people thought are supposed to be absolutely turfed and green and lush, are not so anymore. Architecturally, golf courses, the visuals are changing. So if you see the new golf courses that are being built, even the modern golf courses have very rough and rugged look. So all the non-playing areas, the roughs are designed in a way where they don't ask for too much water or maintenance. Plus, another thing that golf courses need to look at is using the right kind of turf. Obviously, if you use the right kind of turf, very often that could be 99% of the time it could be the native turf. The native turf is always going to require less water than a hybrid variety or imported variety of turf. So while building golf courses or changing your golf course, renovating a golf course, that's also a factor that needs to be, considered at that point in time.
Right. KK sir, you wanted to say something.
One more point on this. The restrictions have already come in number of cities where fresh water cannot be used for maintenance of the golf course. Restrictions are already there, like Chandigarh. And the administration provides treated water to the golf course where they store it in 2 tanks and use it on the golf course. Similarly, in Jaipur, you can't use fresh water for maintenance of golf course. So all the golf courses are gradually drawing sewage water. Either they are treating it themselves by putting the plants, or the administration is helping them, giving them treated water for the maintenance of the golf course. And secondly, we tried one experiment when I was with the ITC Classic, as brought out by AK and Vijit. The rough areas, we are not putting grass at all. Put plants and shrubs which do not require water. So it will reduce the dependence of water for the maintenance. Of course, it may not look lush green, that is fine. But water definitely can be reduced by using sewage water or treated water from other sources.
May I add, in Tolly Club, there is a very good system of conservation of water, rainwater management in Tolly Club. I had seen 4 or 5 years back. And secondly, sir, may I add that good some type of fertilizers don't need any irrigation after application. So choosing correct chemicals, correct product for nutrition is also very important to control the use of water after application.
I'll just read into Vijit's area. I think Vijit did talk about the trend worldwide, and that is his expertise. But two of the celebrity golf architects of the world, Tom Doakes and Gilbert, if you see their new golf designs, which are celebrated designs, Stream Song, and on all other things, they have all focused on water management, water management, water management. They are using probably 1/50th of the water which a corresponding course used to use earlier, and they are celebrated golf courses. I mean, they are unfortunately in India we seem to think that Augusta is the only golf course in the world, but these are supposed to be the celebrity designs, and you will have to do water management. And in fact, coming to another point, people who want to build new golf courses, they will have to think twice about choosing a site which cannot have water supplied through a treated water supply, which does not have a treated water supply. The golf course is bound to fail if they choose a site which does not have treated water. It is bound to fail because after some time they'll have no water and there'll be no grass. Similarly, the other thing which new golf courses have to see is 99% of the golfers who play golf in India are recreational golfers. They do not need 7,000-yard golf courses. They need to go back to the drawing board, make very interesting golf courses which are shorter, require lesser water, lesser chemicals, lesser money, and more enjoyable, more rounds. So Vijit can elaborate more on that. That's his expertise.
So just to add, to continue with this conversation, there are 3-4 questions which we will take after this. But most of the golf courses I've played across Asia, they all have a central water reservoir where all the water accumulates. And I'm sure there are ways where you don't want to lose the water, whether it's through evaporation or through going back into the ground. So how are these tanks lined? How are these water reservoirs done? So just a little idea so that a lot of people would just like to understand how this water is saved, accumulated, and saved so that it doesn't evaporate as much as it would in the hotter places.
May I add one thing? Sure. I have seen this Boulder Hill. Boulder Hill was at the time of crisis, it had no water. Project was already conceived, construction was done. Now, in last 2 years, Boulder Hill is बहुत अच्छा काम किया उन्होंने. जो जितना भी रेन वाटर का उनका मैनेजमेंट है, इट इज बहुत मार्वलस है, और अब वो लोग इतना सही सर्वाइव कर रहे हैं. एंड अनदर थिंग इज, आप अभी बात किए कि मानसून, अभी पीछे जब मानसून आया हैदराबाद में, जो हैदराबाद गोल्फ कोर्स है वो डूब गया, और बोल्डर हिल जो था वो पूरा मानसून जो पूरा बरसात था, इट वाज वर्क, मतलब पीपल गोल्फर एंजॉयिंग लाइक एनीथिंग. तो लोकेशन उसका इतना बढ़िया, और उन्होंने वाटर मैनेजमेंट के ऊपर बहुत अच्छा काम किया. और उनकी जो वाटर बॉडीज है ना सर, जो मेन वाटर बॉडी क्लब हाउस के सामने है, उन्होंने इसका इतना बढ़िया ब्यूटीफाई कर दिया है. मतलब बहुत गंदगी थी वहां पे, और इन्होंने इतना सुंदर वाटर मैनेजमेंट किया है वहां पे, और बोल्डर हिल सक्सेसफुल है इसमें. तो अपने गोल्फ कोर्सेज को ये रेन वाटर कंजर्वेशन और वाटर बॉडीज मैनेज करने के लिए दे शुड, इन लो बजट में, मेन बात है लो बजट में करने के लिए, दे शुड गो टू बोल्डर हिल्स.
Basically, one more addition in the what you mentioned about having a central reservoir, that is an important factor whenever we are building a golf course or a golf course. Typically, what we try and do is have all the drainage collect into a kind of water feature. That could be a swale which eventually runs into a water reservoir or a pond, or drain the water directly into a pond using surface drainage systems or underground drainage systems. Basically, whatever you're putting through irrigation needs to be collected back into the reservoir and then reused on the golf course. That's probably the most efficient system. It's you can say a standard across all modern golf courses across the world, which is definitely lacking. Like if you look at the old golf courses in the country, most of them don't have drainage systems, and obviously they can't collect the rainwater into the ponds and reuse it for irrigation, like the modern courses can do.
So,
I wanted to
okay.
add,
Yes, sir.
add
Take it,
to
sir.
This only. Basically, it now come to the designer of the golf course. Water conservation. It is as per his design. Like JP Green, when it was constructed way back 2000. What they did, they dug up the complete golf course, laid perforated irrigation pipes, put sand on top, and then planted grass. Any amount of rain or water which comes, goes through the pipe, goes to lake. And the whole golf course has got 8 major and 13 lakes. They are all interconnected. This interconnected lake, water goes into the mother lake, pump back again to the system. Though a lot of evaporation takes place, but this type of design is only possible where starting from the scratch. Golf course which are already existing, they cannot stop it for a year or 2 years to dig up the complete golf course and lay pipes. But in future, like Vijit, he's planning another golf course, I believe. I'm sure he'll keep this in mind that how to conserve water in future.
Right. So, Vijit, just one more question to you pertaining to this. Then there is a question. There's a hand up. So, Vijit, how are these water bodies lined? I mean, from a layman's point of view or a committee, what makes the water stay in these tanks? What are the options of lining these tanks? The water.
Two things we need to look at when you're building a reservoir or a pond. Obviously, number one is the aesthetics that you're looking at. What kind of a design feature you're trying to create, and second is the water conservation and the waterproofing. So there are multiple ways of waterproofing a pond. The most effective and efficient way is to use a pond liner. There are materials available in the market which are 100% waterproof, UV protected, and they last decades and decades. So I've seen golf courses using the same material for 30-40 years. So it's basically a pond liner, a kind of a rubber material with EPDM or HDP material, which goes at the bottom of the pond and which forms a impermeable layer. So water is retained there. Another thing that can be done is concreting or RCC, CC base to the ponds, but that changes the aesthetics. So if you're looking at a very natural looking pond, if that is your goal, then sometimes creating those structures and concreting is not the way to go. So both things, aesthetics and the practicality, have to go hand in hand then.
Right. Thank you. Sia, if you can unmute Mr. Ravi Rana, I think he has a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Actually, that point I would like to say about the irrigation part of it, the president very rightly mentioned that we should have the less play area. In fact, the golf course is as it is, they want complete area to be watered to look green, which is not the right form. You must reduce the play area, 6,800 for entertainment golf for a golfers, members, particularly in average golf courses, which has got about 100 acres of land, it is more than enough. There's no point to stretch it to 7,200. Less the play area, less the water, less the fertilizer, less the mowing. And if that is taken care of, I think there will be not much of problem of the water. Gentlemen, remember, world over, if you see that only about 2% of the total water is being used by the golf courses in the world. Like even in the COVID time, even 3% was a requirement for the oxygen, whereas we wasted a lot. It is enough. It was enough, but people didn't know how to use it. And same is the reason here with the water. Then we say about the water body. Vijit has said designing a water body for a designing course, different issue. But designing a water body for your, maybe for the average golf courses or a reasonable good municipal courses, you need only the 2 water bodies. That means the 2 water bodies will be able to contain a water in emergency for at least 2 days watering. But now, since any project, Vijay would have known it, that any project which is more than 50 lakhs and above, You need a clearance from the environment. You cannot pull out a water, underground water, and use it. You use the water from the corporation or they use the water from the building around the project which is coming in. In certain places, people are even buying water. Like I tell you about the Noida golf course, we are getting a treated water from the corporation or from the Noida authority. The requirement is about 4.5 lakh of liters of water every day, which is monitored through the meter as such. And now after the COVID, people have missed the proper watering of the greens. And that is the reason that the certain greens, I tell you in our club, 9 greens had gone bad because they were not watered. Watering should have been done. The greens, after that, we have done the forking and watered it twice a day, morning, evening, and it has come back within 5-6 days. I'd sent
Right,
some
sir.
photographs to KK also to have a look. Then the
Right,
KK
sir.
mentioned about the thatch part of it. Thatch is also must, but how much thatch is must? Thatch you need is about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of thatch on the greens. Because if you have the thatch, there'll be less compaction also. People will be happy to feel when they attack a green, the green will hold. But on the other hand, people want green to be firm so that when you hit a ball on the green, the ball will run a bit. But if you hit a ball from the rough, the ball will stay on the green. These are the players, what you call part of the game and the skill. But nevertheless, removing of the thatch is a must. But when you come to the scarifying is also part of the cultural practices, whether you do initially grooming, then
Right,
you
sir.
do the verticutting, then you do the dethatching, then you do the scarifying, then you do the coring. So a stage should not come where you should start doing the too much of removal of the dethatch. When you say top dressing of the greens is a very good practice with the superintendent and must be done every month, at least every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And the
Right,
top
sir.
dressing is basically, gentlemen, it is to dilute the soil organic matter. It must be used. As President has very rightly mentioned, for most of the golf courses, it is an entertainment golf. And when you say entertainment golf, the yardage could be kept to 6,800, which is very good. Then when the designer comes, when he said, no, it is the speed. It is the firmness. It is the slope. He makes the life difficult for the veterans, for the seniors as to how to keep putting it. If you make the difficult pin position, you create a slope. Normally, any downhill putts are the difficult putts. When
Right, sir.
superintendent
Thanks.
pin position, which is over the bunker and it is kept on the front part of the green, it is considered to be the most difficult pin position. Well, these
Right,
are
sir.
the
Thanks.
certain things we would share with you. And when we have a more of a seminar and we will discuss these points much in detail. Thank you so much.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming in. So there's another question which says that, during the winters, how to make the greens soft. I will add a little bit to this question. There are some golf courses where the greens are more receptive, they spin better when the ball lands, and there are some golf courses where the balls kind of tends to skid a little bit after landing. I'm talking totally from a player's point of view. So what is the difference in these two greens? Why is one green ball is stopping us, or you can generate more backspin? I'm not talking not necessarily soft, but just the greens are being more receptive, and some of them the ball tends to skid off. What is the difference between these two greens? KK sir, you want to?
Yeah.
I'll take
It
that.
is basically the, okay, go ahead, AK.
Okay.
So both of you.
Go ahead.
Indrajit, there are 2-3 things which are important on this. One is the design aspect. Any green which is raised, pushed up greens will always be having lesser moisture and they will always bounce much more. And greens which are near the ground level, because they have the capillary action, they have more moisture underneath, they will always retain the ball that much more. There's also something about the grain, the way you cut the green. If the grain is away from you, the ball will keep running. If the grain is against you, it will tend to stop it. And a lot of it, which mistakenly a lot of people do this, we all see golf on TV. When Indrajit Bhalotia plays, I think that I can also hit the same kind of shots. And when I see him spinning, I think I can also spin it. But most of the amateurs cannot spin the ball. So what is the compromise which is taken? The compromise is you make greens softer by adding moisture, by overwatering them. And by doing this, you're not only making sure that your play is slower, you're also making sure that your greens are more diseased, and you're also making sure that you require more manpower to repair pitch marks and things like that. In my personal view, overwatering is the cardinal sin of golf course management. Unfortunately, greenkeepers have to take that line to the line of overwatering because they are pushed by golf club management to make it look nicer visually and nicer for people who are handicap of 18 plus. I mean, there is a very interesting statistics. Tiger Woods at his peak when he is playing at -6 or whatever, sorry, +6. Difference between him and a top amateur is 11 strokes, which top amateurs in a golf club don't realize. And any top amateur who plays -3, -4 thinks that he is actually equivalent to a professional player. So that is the first step where we go wrong in our golf course management on everything, retention, disease management, everything. So a lot of it is to do with the psyche of amateur players to think that they're far better than their skill. Their skill level is far better than what actually is.
Right. KKK, sir?
I'll add only 2 points. First, it depends upon the design of the green. And second, the most important, the cultural practices with the greenkeeper is adopting. Same green, you'll find is playing one day slow, after a couple of days playing fast. So there's a lot of variation takes place. All 18 greens you find do not play to the same speed. In fact, during major tournament when we had Avanta Master, it was their requirement that all 18 green speed should be same. To the extent that we had to measure speed of all 18 greens, and every green was given different treatment for mowing, watering, so that they could be brought to a level. So it is the design and the greenkeeper, it is his skill how he manages.
Right. Okay, so the next question is, regarding sand-based greens. So if you can just elaborate, I mean, what are the different kind of greens? What is the difference between a sand-based green and any other kind of green? If we can talk about 2-3 ways of building the greens.
Vijit, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously the most widely used green construction method is the USGA construction method, which is the sand-based greens. So where what we do is we create the subsurface using the native soil. We add drainage underground, and we have a layer of gravel over which we have a root zone, a sand root zone of 12 inches uniform throughout the green. Actually, not uniform anymore. You can have a slight variation in that. So what we're trying to do here is create a perched water table system. Keep our USGA after years of research has come up with this layering of green construction, which is known to give the best growing conditions for the turf. So you have some moisture retention in the root zone. That is the basic idea, that you have some water retention in the root zone and the extra water is all drained out into the drain pipes. Except for the USGA system, we also have a California construction method, which is what we used at the Derry Golf Course recently in rebuilding the greens there. So basically it's the same method, but you don't have a gravel layer. So you have a sand root zone, and then you have the drainage pipes under that. Then you also have a construction method, which is the native soil or a push-up green construction method, which generally is used on sites which have very good soil, very suitable soil for golf, which are free draining. So if you have a soil type which is very sandy, loamy, you would not want to put too much drainage under the green, and you would not need to import sand. So you can use the native soil and just create those greens. Most of the links golf courses, most of the golf courses in UK, which are built on natural sandy soils, actually don't have any drainage. They are not USGA or California greens, but they still play extremely well, extremely fast and firm. So all that would depend on the kind of soils that you are dealing with, and obviously the kind of budgets the client has. I hope that
Right.
answers it. Indeed. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one question about drainage from someone from Bombay. We know that Calcutta and Bombay are very similar, where drainage is a problem. So, just in a very short way, a short way, if you could just explain how the drainage system works around a golf course. I know it's a huge subject. We could have a seminar on this itself, but just in a short way, if we can just give a few pointers on what you're looking at when you're creating a drainage system in a golf course. Who would like to take this?
Okay, I'll
AK
take
sir?
this, Indrajit.
Okay.
Simplest thing about drainage is that whatever excess water is there anywhere on the golf course, whether green or fairway or anywhere, it should drain away from the playing area. That's the simplest thing first. And for that, you got to have some areas. And what Vijit had sometime alluded to about an elaborate underground drainage system which takes it to a pond, etc. There's a definite there's a definite reason for it. When you're talking about places like Calcutta and Bombay, which have got heavy rainfall, to think that they will not get flooded on a day when you have 10 inches of rain is living in a world of utopia. You're fooling yourself. They will get drained, they will get flooded. But the trick of a good drainage is how soon they will get drained out and how soon they will become playable.
Right.
You also have to understand one thing about the groundwater level. Groundwater level of all these golf courses during monsoons actually rises so much that the water cannot be drained out by pipes or any kind of sump which is underneath, because water can drain out only when there is no water there. If the water surface has come up, it will not drain out. So you got to be patient. I mean, you got to understand that some of the vagaries of weather will remain. The only answer is what Vijit initially talked about, was an elaborate piping system from the drained out areas, which takes you to a deeper pond which can store the surplus water, which will create this artificial shortage of water, artificial void. So that is one elaborate way. But the simplest way we also have to understand the Greenkeepers Association, which we are all members of. We represent the golf industry in this country. We don't represent only those 10 golf courses in the country which can afford elaborate drainage or irrigation systems. So for a simplistic golf course, the simpler thing is make sure that your drainage, the design or the construction of the golf course is in such a manner that the water drains away from the playing area. So you can have sloping greens, you can have sloping fairways which rise, just something like our roads. If you see our tarred roads, they are higher in the middle and they have slopes on both sides. So you got to have similar kind of fairways, and you got to go and create some kind of storage near there. So that, and in case you can afford it, you can create certain amount of porous material, certain amount of sumps in areas where water is accumulating. But above all, have patience. On a day when you have very, very heavy rainfall, when the cars cannot drive, when people are being flooded, to think that you will play great golf on that day is asking for too much.
Right. If there are any questions, anyone from the audience, you're most welcome to ask. I saw Mr. Chaudhary from Bangladesh also attending this. So a seminar like this can actually be an international seminar, because one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that the whole world has become a much smaller place where people from across.
She asking something.
So we have a raised hand.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bakshi.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Arun, this for you and for Indrajit. Do you recommend this ryegrass which they put every winter in these golf courses? How eco-friendly is it?
See, I personally feel there's nothing grossly wrong with ryegrass, but you got to see the cost effectiveness. And secondly, it's not a native grass. What Vijit initially talked about, it's not a native grass. For most of the golf courses, it has got ornamental value. I mean, places like Calcutta and Bombay, you definitely don't need ryegrass. A place like Delhi, where you have 2 months of extreme winters and where you can have demanding membership, you may require it. But The problem with ryegrass is once the winter season goes away, it is not like a surgical operation that in the month of February it will go away. Patches will still remain. So you have another effort to remove it and get Bermuda again. So I personally think a better management of Bermuda grass is much better for most of the so-called cold cities in this country. Ultimately, India is a warm season country. It's a very hot and warm country. So we need to have warm season grasses, and we should stick to warm season grasses.
Two more points that I would like to add here. Ryegrass obviously is a grass that will be used as overseeding grass in Indian conditions, the one that can withstand winter. So it's a cost that you have to incur every year. Like Arun sir said, it won't grow back after the summers are there. So you'll have to put in the seeds every year. So not a lot of golf courses can afford that. Plus, secondly, we have to realize whenever you're putting ryegrass down onto a golf course, which typically would have Bermuda grasses, you are changing the character of the golf course.
Yeah.
With Bermuda grass, golf course is supposed to play in a particular way. Certain shots that you'll be able to play on Bermuda grass, you will not be able to play the same kind of shots on ryegrass because the ball is not going to react in the same way. So ultimately, you're changing the design and changing the character of the golf course also, unless it has been designed to have overseeding. Like for DLF, for example, DLF has been designed in a way where it'll be overseeded throughout the winters with ryegrass. So it's been designed that way, but most of the golf courses are not. And like Arun sir said, Bermuda variety grasses can play excellent throughout the country, even when they're dormant. They're excellent turf conditions to play on.
Yeah, but these are basically on the tees, so really it doesn't affect the condition of play.
Yeah, so ryegrass overseeding can happen anywhere, sir.
I know.
A lot of golf courses are doing it on tees.
Okay. Delhi Golf Club usually puts on the tees only, so that's what I'm saying.
No, right. Yes, a lot of golf courses do it on tees, including Chandigarh and Delhi Golf Course. Yes, that's to give some turf cover in the winter.
We do it quite regularly in Delhi Golf Club, and the ryegrass is being provided by Mr. Vinod Goyal only. And the moment the winter is over, the grass dries up. But it doesn't. You don't enjoy in playing two different type of grasses like is brought out down by Arun. But they have a lot of money, so you can spend it. Otherwise, not advisable.
Chitranjan sir, there are a lot of golf courses where the management thinks that they've got surplus money, so they got to show some utilization, and they might as well utilize it for ornamental reasons.
Sir, I must add.
Because that's what members expect.
Sir, you got muted. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, the public ka paisa hai, so it doesn't really matter to the management. They come for 1 year, spend it and go away.
We got
that's for you to question your management.
We got digressed from our original topic, that is post-COVID management of the golf courses.
Right.
All those people who are listening in case you have any doubts, you can even call us up later. If not been able to ask any doubt, you can call us up at GSMAI. We are ready to give you support. If required, we'll visit you. And with permission of Mr. A.K. Singh, our president, we will not charge you any money for that also. So please do call us. We'll reach out to you.
That's a great initiative.
Don't listen
That's
to him seriously when he talks about my permission. Actually, they all drive me. They all make me work.
Okay, so just maybe if there are no questions, I just had one more question, and if nobody has questions, we'll be ending the session. We see, a lot of sand coming out of bunkers, especially bunkers where a lot of balls feed in, and a lot of sand comes out of the bunkers, and right on the green, just when you get off the bunker, the grass seems to be suffering there, and there's a lot of sand on the green at that part. So if you could just talk a little bit about how this can be avoided, or how you can keep the greens okay in those areas right in front of the bunkers. I'm talking about obviously greenside bunkers.
We are facing this problem currently in Delhi Golf Club. We just did the renovation of golf course. Vijit Nindra did it year before last year, and we changed white sand in all the greens. Now we are finding problem because the sand which has been provided is too thick, and you got to water it. When you play in the morning, you hit a bunker shot, all this displaced sand comes onto the green. If not green, then into the apron of the greens. Later on, it spoils the surface, the grass starts dying, or the mechanics, when they're using machines, the blade gets affected, as well as we notice the scratches on the bottom of the golf clubs as well. So it is a choice. Though white sand may look very nice from a distance in a picture photograph, but from the maintenance point of view, this sand is not very good.
Is this the same sand we see in Augusta?
Yeah, same sand which is used for the construction of the green is much more better. And I have tried it in 3 different golf courses. JP Green, all 88 bunkers are white sand. Delhi Golf Club, all bunkers are white sand. Before that, I tried it on Chandigarh golf course. We had the same problem. And finally, we reverted back to the same sand which used for the construction of the golf course.
Which is a much better thing.
Yeah.
Also, Indrajit, just to add one more thing on bunkers, when I was talking about designing golf courses, constructing new golf courses, people who are managing the golf clubs, they must question the reason for every existence of every bunker. Remember, every bunker which you create slows down play. It makes your course more expensive. It becomes your maintenance is more expensive. The sand is a very, very scarce commodity. We were talking about water shortage some time back. We are very soon going to have sand shortage. Are you going to have the same challenges which you are having with water in another 5-10 years about sand? So question every bunker. Every bunker is not needed in recreational golf courses. You need speed of play. Colonel K. Singh was talking about Delhi golf, a notoriously slow golf course. Notoriously so. Why do you need so many bunkers where people are going up and down, up and down?
Right. Okay, so the last question before we end the session. It was really, really informative. So my question is, if somebody comes to you and says that, I don't have a budget, I can get a small piece of land, I want to build a 9-hole golf course. What is I'm not talking about literally a pitch putt course. I'm talking about at least, a couple of par fours, at least in there. So what would be the minimum amount of land you would need to build a playable 9-hole course? And roughly what would be the cost other than the land cost? I know it's a very, very broad-based question, but just to give people a little bit of an idea.
Indrajit, for 9-hole golf courses, if you're talking about a smaller sized golf course, even if you have a parcel of 25 to 30 acres of land, that's usually good enough. We've done multiple projects of that scale. So I know from experience, we can easily fit in 2 to 3 par 4s, maybe sometimes even a par 5, one odd par 5 also in about 30 acres of land. If a lot depends on the kind of soil, kind of topography we're dealing with, So that's
Right.
probably the minimum that you're looking at, 25 acres to do a decent kind of a 9-hole golf course. Cost would depend largely on the conditions, But you can do a very kind of a good quality golf course, good sustainable kind of a golf course for as low as 10 to 15 lakh rupees an acre also, if the soil and the site conditions can permit that,
Right. That's a great input. So gentlemen, thank you so much for doing this. I think this was the first seminar where we tried to involve the golf courses. I know we've had a few seminars with our members, but this is where we try to involve clubs and committees, and I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more of them. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this. The recorded version will be available on YouTube over the next couple of days. So we will share the link with everyone who's attended this. We've had a great attendance. I think close to 70 people attended this seminar, what I was running through. So thank you so much. And we will see you soon. Stay safe, everyone. And one last parting word, maybe from the president.
Okay, since we've not touched the post-COVID scenario so much, I personally think that golf has got an opportunity to reinvent itself and become a much more relevant sport in this country, provided we play it well. We got to focus on the game. In post-COVID scenario, when people are going to be scared of getting into contact sports, etc., probably golf provides the best opportunity. But at the same time, we got to be sure about one thing, that in post-COVID scenario, a lot of financial stress will also come in. That is where organizations like ours, GCS-MAI and architects, etc., come into play. We can reduce the cost. We can, improve the experience of people who participate, we can make it a much more enjoyable thing. I think golf courses do not realize this one thing so far, that golf is about providing an experience. It's not about only playing golf and putting scores. So the experience has to be good, and that's where good golf course management comes into play, and good golf club management also comes into play.
So, sir, now that you've spoken about this, there is one more question which I think is the main challenge for post-COVID scenario is the manpower.
Yeah.
And I have seen, golf courses in the UK, the smaller golf courses, maintaining a golf course with 2 people, 3 people, very small golf courses, 9-hole courses. India, obviously, the labor is cheaper and we have a lot more things. But what is the basic minimum number of people you need to maintain a 18-hole regular golf course where there are 300, 400, 500 members playing?
I think this is again a difficult thing to assess, just like what we're talking about the cost of building a golf course. It widely ranges. And unfortunately, in fact, when we say that in Scotland and Ireland, you have golf courses which are managed by only 10 people, there are enough golf courses in this country which are also managed by only 5 people or 10 people. Unfortunately, the way we have taken golf in this country, they are not visible at all. Those golf courses are not nowhere near the horizon. They've got only 10 members. They've got only 20 members. They have challenges of money, etc. All golf courses can do with lesser manpower. There's no doubt about that. But for that to do that, they got to pay the basic wages better so that they attract better people. People should be able to multitask. Here, what has happened is, because of our feudal system or whatever class system, a person who drives a drive-on machine will not walk. So you got to have people who do multitasking, who do one machine to another machine to other machine. They got to be paid slightly better. The expectations of members have to be reduced. Unfortunately, we are all going by this large city models where people, if they become members of a golf club, they think they have become their creme de la creme. So their opinion has to be heard. So if the member expectations are paired, and if you understand that there's certain things, for example, flooding on a rain hit day, that should be extended. You can definitely reduce the number of people. You can definitely reduce the number of manpower we require. But if you want a wall-to-wall carpeting, you want everything to be green, you want everything to be, what we call a 5-star experience, then unfortunately you will require a larger gang.
No, definitely, because I'll just give you one of my experiences. I've played a lot of golf on Bethpage Black. Bethpage Black is supposed to be one of the toughest courses in the world. They had the US Open. And I played close to 200 rounds on that golf course. Every summer I used to go there. And we used to play there because me and Arjun Atwal, we would find that golf course totally empty. No one really liked playing there. And the fairway actually started from 220, 230 yards.
Absolutely.
There was no fairway. There was just wasteland. And, there was sand and shrubs. There was nothing. And then the fairways were brilliant. So you had all rubbish around you, and then you had your strips of fairways. And most of the golfers won't even reach from the back tees, won't reach the fairways and once you don't reach the fairway, you are in absolute rubbish. I mean, it's actually rubbish, stones and shrubs. So I totally understand. So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't only have to be a budget golf course, but you can even have a great golf course with just
budget.
Your landing areas well kept.
You must have seen Scottsdale again, great golf course.
Right.
But it's not ornamental. And Stream Song I mentioned, and you also have the older golf courses. When Delhi Golf Club, etc., was in the older avatar, it was still a very good golf course to play on. Golden Greens. And
Golden Greens is a great golf course of this nature.
So it was a great golf course. You know why.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, and thank you everyone for joining in. I'm sure we as an association will be hosting a lot more where we will involve not only our members, but also the golfing community so that everyone understands how golf is, what happens in the back end of golf, because greenkeeping is pretty much a thankless job. We all know that. no matter how much work goes in, we are never happy as golfers. And thank you so much, AK sir, Vinod ji, KKK sir, Birjit. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And I'm sure we'll be doing the next one with more international participation. Thank you so much. Stay safe,
Thank you,
everybody.
Indrajit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.